Hi, I'm Scott Cusey, and I'll be your narrator and host as we demonstrate how to perform many of the common repair procedures on the starting and charging systems of your vehicle. During this chapter, I'll show you the items needed to perform the basic repairs that we'll demonstrate on this tape. Now, we can break down your starting and charging system into three basic areas. The battery and cables is one, the alternator, voltage regulator, and drive belts is another, and the starting motor and relay or solenoid is the third one. Now, the heart and probably the most important item this system has is the battery. It not only supplies the power for starting the vehicle, but it's also like a shock absorber for when your electrical system demands are more than what your alternator can supply. It's also the sole backup device in case of alternator or voltage regulator failure. Now, in Chapter 2, we'll talk about maintaining your battery for maximum service life and show you how to determine if it's time to replace it. In Chapter 3, we'll demonstrate how to replace your battery and add some safety tips and installation tips to make the job easier and safe. In Chapter 4, we'll look at how to replace the alternator on most vehicles. Basically, if your battery is undercharged and all of your cables and belts are in good condition, the problem probably lies in the alternator or voltage regulator. But during Chapter 5, we'll continue by demonstrating how to install your own starting motor. Now, if your vehicle cranks hard or slow and your battery's fully charged, it's most likely a bad starter motor, and most of them aren't really too difficult to replace. Well, that wraps up the areas we'll be discussing, so now let's take a minute to review some of the items and tools that you'll be using. Now, obviously, you're going to need a basic set of hand tools that are going to include many of the items that I have behind me, like wrenches and screwdrivers and pliers, but you probably already have them in your toolbox, so we're not going to spend a lot of time in that area. What I would like to talk about is some of the other items that are specific more to charging system repairs. First off, you're probably going to want to have a good quality battery charger. Now, whether you've got a deep cycle marine battery or an automotive battery or a garden tractor battery, whatever you're working on, you want to make sure that the battery charger you purchase will take care of all your needs. So talk to the salesman about your battery charger before you just go ahead and select one to make sure that it covers all the areas that you want to work on. Now, when you are checking your battery out, one of the most important things to do is make sure the fluid level is up there. A point that I want to reiterate several times is whenever you're adding fluid to a battery, make sure you use distilled water, because tap water actually has many minerals in it that will attack the plates and shorten the life of your battery. So make sure you use distilled water, and a funnel kind of makes it easy to add that. Now, when it comes to cleaning your battery, it really becomes a major important area, because the worst enemy of a battery is corrosion, okay? So I suggest having some baking soda that you can mix up with some water to use to clean the terminals and remove some of the corrosion from around the battery. And there's several types of battery terminal cleaners. This one happens to work on top post terminals, top post terminal of the battery there, and then this part of the cleaner works on the cable end. There's other styles of battery cleaners also, like this one here, which happens to be for side post batteries. This, once again, is for the battery part, and the wire brush is for the terminal end. So cleaner like that will make sure that your connections are good, and once again, that's one of the leading problem areas, so make sure they are periodically cleaned. Once you've got them cleaned, make sure to protect them with a good spray battery protectant. That'll prevent that corrosion from coming back on you. And if you're removing terminals, you're probably going to want to use a tool like this to remove a top post terminal to make sure you don't damage the terminal or the battery. And once you've got that terminal off and you're going to be putting it back on, you might want to use a battery spreader tool like this that simply fits right inside a cable end, and you pull it together like that, and it spreads that terminal out so you can get the terminal back on the battery when you're all done. Nifty little tool to have around. You're also going to be using a battery hydrometer to test specific gravity, and that'll tell you what the state of charge of the battery is. Specific gravity is low, battery's low, needs to be charged. If it's right up there, well, then you know your problem's elsewhere in the system. Another item that you'll be using is a voltmeter. One I have here happens to be a combination digital volt ohm meter. You can use an analog type meter or this style. I prefer this style because it's a little more accurate and a little easier to read, but whatever style of voltmeter you have, if you've got a 0 to 20 volt scale, that should be about all you're going to need. On the safety end, make sure that you're wearing safety glasses or eye protection whenever you're working around batteries, because the gases they produce are explosive. And make sure you don't smoke or light any matches or anything like that, or have any sparks around a battery, because you could end up with an incident that way. And also, I like to wear some protective clothing, whether that's in the form of a shop coat or coveralls or even just an old jacket. Make sure you're protecting the clothes that you're wearing, because battery acid is real hard on clothing. So protective clothing is nice to have. Set of jack stands, make sure you have them. Make sure you use them if you're underneath the vehicle. And a fire extinguisher, make sure it's in a real accessible spot, and that whoever's in the shop with you knows where it's at too, because if you ever have an incident, you're going to want to make sure that you have one of those there to put out that flame or fire right away. Lastly, make sure that you get a manual for the vehicle you're working on. I like specific manuals like this one because it really goes into details on the specific steps and procedures on your vehicle, and many times those steps are quite a bit different from vehicle to vehicle. So a manual like this is really nice to have, makes the job go a lot easier. Lastly, I'd like to thank you for choosing Car Care Seminar to help you learn more about your car. Before you start your next project, check to see if there's a Car Care Seminar tape to help you do the job the right way and the safe way, the first time and every time. Now, let's get started with the first step of repairing our starting and charging system.
When properly maintained, your vehicle's battery can give you years of trouble-free service. Battery maintenance should be considered as an integral part of periodic vehicle maintenance and should be performed whether or not problems have been encountered. Whenever working around batteries, there are a few simple safety tips to follow. First, keep any sparks or flames away from the battery. A battery goes through a chemical reaction that generates hydrogen gas, which is extremely flammable. Even a lit cigarette or a spark from disconnecting or connecting the battery cables could ignite this gas. For your safety, always wear safety goggles and protective clothing whenever working around batteries. Work in a well-ventilated area when charging or discharging batteries. Now let's look at a few tips for proper care and battery maintenance. An area that is often overlooked when checking fluid levels in your car is the electrolyte level inside your battery. If your battery is like this, a fluid level check cannot be performed as it is not equipped with removable vent caps. This style of battery, however, is not totally sealed and should be kept upright at all times to prevent spillage of the fluid inside. If your battery is equipped with removable vent caps, simply remove them from the top of the battery and look at the fluid level in each cell. The fluid level should be even with the bottom of the filler tube in each cell. If the fluid level is low in any of the cells, add distilled water to bring the fluid level to the correct height. Never add more sulfuric acid. If a frequent loss of battery fluid is noticed, one or more of the following conditions may exist. The charging system is overcharging and should be inspected for proper operation. Or the battery case has been punctured or cracked and is leaking fluid.